It's Christmas time, and sounds of the season ring out from the historic 1905 Opera House in Wessington Springs, South Dakota. The community choir is rehearsing its annual Christmas cantata, including musicians from nearly all the 9 churches that serve Gerald County. A city of around 950 people, Wessington Springs has more than its fair share of churches, and more than its share of musicians as well. One might even be tempted to make a connection between the two. Indeed, it seems that in this small town, tucked beneath the Wessington Hills on the border between farm and ranch land, faith and music go hand in hand. And in the next half hour, I'll introduce you to some of those musicians and the faith that sustains them, and let them reveal the connections they see between faith and music in their lives. At 93 years old, Sally Beers may be the oldest musician in town. A resident of Wescoda Manor Rivera, Sally previously taught piano lessons and played for worship services at the 2 United Church of Christ congregations that serve the community. Despite the effects of aging, she continues to play for both the residents and herself. As she told Kathy Dean, the seeds for her musicianship were planted at home.
My mother played the piano before I was ever aware of it, and so then she was starting to give me piano lessons. But there was a man came out from Great Falls to give piano lessons to one of the neighbors. So she prevailed upon him to come and take me on also.
Sally studied music education at the University of Minnesota. She says she enjoyed teaching piano lessons, especially when her students applied themselves.
Well, the best part was the ones that really did play and took it seriously. And whose parents took it seriously. Because if the mother didn't take it seriously, the child wouldn't either.
Sally sought to pass along her love of music and her faith to her 2 boys. Her son Tom, who sang in the high school choir, is now a Lutheran pastor.
The one that completely flabbergasted me was when it turns out my older son Bill is giving piano lessons to his minister's children, 1 daughter anyway. Not only is Bill giving piano lessons, his daughter is beginning to do, is teaching piano now.
Well, when I came to Wessington Springs in '78, you were the pianist at church. Oh, you were the organist.
Yeah, we had an organ of sorts.
Organ, yeah. One Sunday, your older son Bill came to sing something that you had written. You had written the music for Psalm 1.
Isn't that funny? You told me about that, and I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, and you recited some of the lines to me. And that was I had no idea you could compose music.
I didn't either.
You had taken some instruction, I think it was through USD, and this was one of the things that you had done for your class, was to write some music by which Psalm 1 could be sung. And it was lovely, and your son Bill sang it in church for us. You're still playing now.
I can resist it only about so long, and then pretty soon, somebody's supposed to come to leave the Sunday afternoon service, and he doesn't show up. So I get busy and I start playing hymns, and people seem to appreciate having me play. The faith and the music are all tied together, and you can't separate them. They've helped each other. When I'm just diddling, waiting to be saved to go to my place at the table, I'll do Jesus Loves Me. Da 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 da. Oh, it was in the key of G. What do you know? To the end of my life, I will have to have music. It is my thing. Now you see, I can play it with my right hand too.
Yeah. Gail and Susan Arnott have been singing together since before they were married. In fact, you could say that music brought them together. Their shared love of music and their shared faith have helped keep them together through over 47 years of wedded life.
I would say this is probably the first time that I paid attention to Gail. It was when I went to my piano lesson from Mrs. Cook, who taught everybody in town almost. And Gail happened to have come on a different day that day and was there playing when I got to my lesson. I bet I was a 5th grader maybe. And he was playing, and I thought, man, he was such a good piano player. And for a boy that young, and I was really impressed. I think probably my love affair started about then. It was a long time going, yeah. I guess it must have been after high school. Gail didn't ask me out until I graduated from high school. He was already in college at a Free Methodist college. But Gail and I started singing duets at some point at the Free Methodist Church fairly often, and Reverend Rogers and Betty Rogers were the pastors there, and he was the pastor who married us, and was a very good friend of our family too. Mm-hmm. And so they were also a couple that really, I would say, influenced my life.
Yes.
And just the fact that I don't know why, I guess we were already dating, that we started singing duets together at church.
Yes. And Reverend Rogers was instrumental in my faith journey. I heard him every Sunday morning, and then also he would come to the chapel to speak. And so he was an integral part of my relationship. Being acquainted with Wessington Springs College and Wessington Springs College High School was an integral part of my growing up, as well as my faith, of course. I spent 4 years there, and again involved in all kinds of musical activities, mostly choir and quartet, but also other musical groups, from the Messiah to Madrigal.
I went to the public high school, but I always had my eye on that college community because my parents were friends with a lot of the faculty people and just very involved with the college. My dad was the college physician, and so I knew a lot about the college, and it was huge as a cultural value in this town, and music was a big part of it.
And your
Christian
parents
music.
met there.
My parents had met there,
at the
yeah.
Wessington Springs College.
My dad had gone all through high school and college to Wessington Springs College, but when I was in 5th grade, I sang a solo in the contest, and the judge recommended to my mother that I be taking voice lessons. So she asked me if I would like to take from Prof. Meadows, who was the choral director at the college, and I started taking voice lessons from him probably from that time on until he left. When we got married, Gail was in the Air Force, and right away we were in the chapel community on bases. Well, not necessarily. We went to a Free Methodist church in Rapid City for 2 years. Well, that was our first assignment. And from then on, some couples would drop away, and it was kind of tempting for us. We're in California now, and we might not go to church every Sunday, but we were singers. And where were you going to sing? So I think singing brought me to church when maybe I didn't have a real deep faith yet, but Christian music was what I had always done. At Augustana, I was in the choir, and so it was just the thing for us to be in chapel because we were in choir, and we would always join the chapel choir. And we were in other churches later as his career went on, but in that first chapel in California, I would say that's when we really got settled into going to church every Sunday and developing our faith.
Singing in the choir.
Yeah, singing in the choir. We had a late miscarriage, which was really a stillbirth, and while I was pregnant with that, it was called a fetal demise, and we lost that baby. And during that time, music was kind of everything for me. The piano was in the living room, and I just remember to this day finding songs that were comforting, one of them being God Will Take Care of You, singing that over and over. I think that really helped me cope with that time in my life. So I would say how I think music helped me get through that tough time in my life. But I do think that music brought us into the church pretty much when we were a young couple.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
And I married Gail because he was a solid Christian.
Oh.
And a musician.
And you were in love.
I was crazy about it, yeah. But we used to sing in the car a lot. When we were traveling, we would sing love, like Let Me Call You Sweetheart, or Penny a kiss, a penny a hug. We're gonna save money in a big brown jug. I can't remember the word. But we sang these songs, and you know, who else would I have been able to sing with when if I'd married somebody else?
From a couple to a family, Daryl and Cindy Rounds and their daughter Amber Kolosik have enjoyed singing everything from country western to Sunday Mass. For them, too, faith and music form a double bond of love.
You have to understand my family's a little bit different. My mom and dad had 11 kids in 10 and a half years. 8 of us are twins, so there's 4 sets of twins and 3 singles. So we never missed church. We were in church every Sunday. Good Catholic family, and Mom would be putting everybody in the car, yelling and screaming, and Dad would just be singing away as he was driving to school, or driving to work, for church, just to, I suppose, relax.
I was raised Catholic, and we were always in church every weekend, every Sunday or Saturday night, and we sang not in the choir, because in our small parish there wasn't a choir really. We just all sang as part of the congregation.
My family had a big part of my faith. I think you have to have that when you're growing up to keep it, and we were the same way as they passed that on to me and my siblings. We went to church every Sunday and mostly participated in the music part. Both my girls have taken an interest in helping song lead at Mass here even now, so that's good. They seem to enjoy it.
I grew up being an altar boy, so I was up on the altar all the time serving from about 3rd or 4th grade on, and we didn't really have a church choir. We just had a song leader, and that was usually my uncle or my cousin, one of the two.
Because my parents were playing often at church, I think I started song leading probably around 5th or 6th grade. I remember that about that time we lived in Veblen. And so yeah, from then on I've been pretty active in helping with the music part of our church.
I always like to sing. I like, if I'm in a different church and it's going too slow, my wife always elbows me because it becomes part of my faith, part of my religion. When we went to Veblen, it was a small little Catholic church and they didn't have any music unless some lady happened to be there. So I couldn't play piano because the house burned down when I was 9 years old and I went my piano lessons. But so I used the talent God gave me, and we picked up our guitars and we started doing guitars in church. I went to Webster, we started doing the same thing in Huron, and now here in Wessington Springs. If you look at the 3 of us right here, we had all 3 of us were in our own band for how many years, Amber?
Quite a few, I would say at least 6 or 7. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you started your sophomore year in high school.
Yeah.
And even Alicia sat in once in a while when Amber couldn't be there because she was growing up and had other high school activities to go.
After a long career in music performance, education, and school administration, Daryl Drowns is back teaching band part-time in Iroquois, South Dakota.
I just absolutely love it. And I probably push more my faith onto the kids in school than what you're supposed to, but what are they going to do? They need band directors. And that's about it. Music's been, you always want to know what faith has with our music. Well, faith is more of a way of life. It's not something you just do on Sundays, or it's not something we do music just for faith. Faith is a way of life.
Like the Arnotts, the Rounds family has endured the loss of a child. Amber's son Jacob died as a result of a farm accident in 2015. And as with the Arnotts, music and faith have worked together to bring healing and hope.
When we lost my son, I went through a really hard time and had to kind of decide how I was going to deal with that and, you know, how I felt about how this had happened to me. And I just kind of, it was a very long process for me. I will be very honest about that, but it was also a way for me to just embrace my faith more, and it actually inspired me. It seems crazy, but because I was thinking, because my son is probably in heaven, you know, that's what I believe, I want to know more about that. So it really was a way for me to grow in my faith, actually, and it has actually helped me tremendously in that way.
Faith gets you through all stages of your life, whether it's the good times or the bad times. Like I said earlier, faith is more a way of life. But when you have tragedies like losing a grandson or a son or whatever, it's very tough. And you can either turn away from God or turn away from your faith, or it can become stronger. And I think it's become stronger for us as our family. And I've lost both my parents. So to me, faith is very important. Like I say, it's part of your life.
If faith helps sustain this family's spirit, so does music.
Music is very much an uplifting thing for me. Sometimes, like when you're down, you can listen to a song that kind of portrays like what you're feeling, and sometimes that's an expression which I like to use. But most of the time, I like uplifting music. It kind of lifts my mood and helps my day go better.
If there's certain songs that touch you or touch your soul, it can bring you up or help you heal if you're having a bad day or something's really pulling you down.
I listen to music all day long. It just keeps me happy. Yeah, it brings you down once in a while when a song comes up that reminds you of the past, but that's just part of life.
A few years ago, I switched to pretty much completely listening to Christian music on the radio. I think that helps me bring faith more into more of my day because I'm listening to it more often, because I'm kind of like my parents. I listen to music a lot too. It's just, I like to have it on going all the time. And so I think that helped expanded my faith into more of my day a little bit.
I think singing is nothing but extended prayer as far as I'm concerned. We're a small church here, Catholic church here in Wessington Springs, and we're always looking for people to help either play the piano or song lead, and we've been struggling getting that. It's either 3 of us here or Janet or a few others that help. So it was a few years ago, Liza stepped up and started getting these young kids to come in and start singing. So now we got a group of, 5 or 6 young kids who just love going up there singing. And hopefully that'll help. We can carry on the tradition of good music in our church.
Here we go. 1, 2, here we go, gentlemen.
Another music educator, Julie Fosnant, teaches vocal and elementary music in the Wessington Springs Public Schools. Talking with me in the sanctuary of Our Savior's Lutheran Church, where she's a member, she said that her love of music was inspired at home and nurtured in the church.
My mom is a musician, and I would have to say that she is probably the largest reason why I took up music myself. She is a flute player and a pianist, and I just remember her playing and thinking that was so wonderful, and I wanted to be able to do the same.
What role did your family play in your faith life?
I grew up in a church, so I was one of those blessed kids that was brought to church every Sunday and was in Sunday school and very much a part of the programs where music was very heavily involved. And I do believe that that's made me a huge, that has brought me to where I am today. Pastor Steve and my mom, I would say, were my largest role models as a child growing up. Pastor Steve Olson was our Lutheran pastor in Auburn, Washington, and he was a musician as well as pastor. He was also very involved with our youth programs, and he wrote music and had a lot of us youth perform, sing, and learn his music, and then through worship, we would be singing really all the time. I was part of a contemporary group in our church. I helped lead music in that arena of things in our contemporary service. Younger, I just remember Sunday school singing every Sunday. And then now I am on the other side of it. I actually help with our Sunday school music program. My children have become involved in music because of my love for music and my parents instilling those values in me. My hopes is as they grow older, they become more involved, and I'm looking forward to that growth. Right now, we play ukuleles together at home, and obviously I teach them in the school system, but I look forward to their growth in music. And I'm noticing probably my favorite moments when we share music or actually in church, when we're standing and they're starting to sing the hymns by me and I chuckle, and with missed notes and everything, is a really enjoyable moment to share with them. Because my parents were so adamant about making God and church a part of our lives, I think that is my responsibility as a parent to do the same. So I really tried to bring my boys to church and expose them to Sunday school and all of the learning that's involved there so that they have a great belief system. Church is a comforting place for me, and obviously, and my love for God and music is there. To me, that's the best way for me to worship God is through music. I believe that was a gift I was given, and that's what makes me feel whole. And obviously, now in my career, I'm able to share those emotions, that, you know, not in the same setting, but share those connections with students as well. And it's really my everyday life. Music education is hugely important because I believe it develops well-rounded human beings. I think it, more importantly than developing musicians to go into college in a music career, I think it's about exposing our kids to what music is really about, and igniting that passion within them so that they always throughout life have an appreciation for the music that they're hearing and a better understanding of what it is they're hearing. So those connections.
To what extent has music helped you through difficult times?
Music is therapy. I think most people will use music in a healing sort of way. So if they're having a tough day and just want to forget some of the problems that may have occurred, a lot of people, including myself, will just listen to a favorite song and just take their mind elsewhere. And or play music to remind them of a wonderful time, because I think oftentimes when we listen to a song, we're taken back to a moment where we were very joyful and happy, and it just puts you at ease. I have actually two people that I know that are in the field of music therapy now. Alicia Limas is one, and then I just met another gal that actually does music therapy in Brookings. It is a new career for music. So that's kind of neat that that's expanding. I've become a better musician because of my faith, which is interesting to say, because the purpose of going to church is not performing, but I do believe that God has given me these sources, these inspirations, and mostly in that church setting. It seems to always make me thrive to be better. And it's interesting how it comes back to the church at all times.
You sang for your father's funeral on a recording, but still had that experience. What was that like for you?
Being able to provide my music for his service was, to me, the best gift I could have given him at that time, just because I feel like it encompasses who I became because of him and his love for Jesus and God. And just a very special moment. I knew I couldn't do it live, but to be able to be present in a service for him was perfect.
You might call Jan Cromer and Lisa Edwards the dynamic duo of the United Methodist Church Choir. They're also among the leadership behind the Wessington Springs Community Choir and its annual Christmas cantata. In either role, their faith tends to shine through each note they direct or play. For both, the seeds of their musical talent were sown in the home at Christmas time.
My earliest memory of music in my life would be Christmas time, when my full extended family were gathered together and someone would either be playing piano or organ and we would be singing. And invariably it would be hymns, but also singing grace and just singing all the time together from the time I can remember.
My earliest memory would be sitting at the piano with both of my sisters. They used to play the piano and we'd sing. And my great aunt also played lots of things for me. We'd do Christmas songs, even when it wasn't Christmas.
As with many, their faith grew out of family life as well.
My dad was the last of 4 siblings, and there were 3 of his siblings that all lost children. My dad, my aunt, and one of my uncles. And I think that if you don't have faith, how can you believe that you will ever see them again?
I believe it was always getting me to church, encouraging me to step out of the box when I became a high school student and had teachers wanting me to come and play flute in their churches, and my parents encouraging that, and therefore I was exposed to many different denominations when I was in high school and then continued on.
Musical opportunities tend to multiply in this town. Indeed, the community choir grew in large part out of the leadership of these two in their church choir.
I think it stems from church choir.
Yeah.
And we were both involved in community choir. And as far as my extent, I just think it's fun to sing with other people that you never get to sing with. And it's just a highlight for me.
I feel that community choir evolved around church music. It became evident as the time passed that was our passion. And therefore, a lot of what we use in community choir, we use small snippets here in our church choir too. The two of us, through church, have developed a little ESP where she can guess where I'm going to, and we tend to complement each other. So it's always been a great privilege to be able to work together. Right. We do the same thing here. If I'm playing for church on my flute, Lisa and I'll go through book after book after book, and one or both of us will say, no, that one's just not right. It just doesn't feel right. In this church, we will pick several pieces, and we might be working on 2 or 3 songs at a time. And Sunday morning comes about, and I'll say to Lisa, I really don't think we should be doing this piece, but that one feels right. And just I share that with my choir, and they make it happen.
So many times with our choir on Sunday morning, I think that window back there with the Lord and His shepherd, there is something to do with that window back there. We always pray when we're done, and for some reason, what we have picked that day is what Zach is talking about.
Someone has said that Bach preached through his music. I've seen you do that as well, Jan. What message are you proclaiming through your music?
That we all need to be saved, and that we all need to believe in order to exist. I once saw a poster that said, God gave us music that we may pray without words. I've kind of expanded that in my own life, in the fact that that's truly what I feel when I play my flute. I'm an extension of what He has given me, and it is my responsibility to give that back. When we add the text, it's important to me to make that text meaningful, whether it's simply by stressing certain words or really thinking about the text and understanding the text so that we can make it meaningful again for others.
I just want to be able to play well enough that people feel better maybe after they've heard something.
The last 2 years, the community choir has sung the Hallelujah Chorus with the high school choir. What has that meant to you?
To me, it was bringing back memories because 4 years of college, that was a tradition that Northern State University had, was singing the Christmas section of Handel's Messiah, ending with the Hallelujah Chorus. But also it was fabulous being able to sing with the younger generation and hopefully influencing them in a positive way.
It shows the kids that no matter how old you are, music can be used and be an important part of your life. Sports will come and go, but music, art, what have you, can be with you forever.
There are more than 30 musicians in Wessington Springs, even more when you count the developing musicians in our schools. Many of these musicians have a faith story to tell. In the last half hour, you've heard only 9 of them. More may be revealed in the year ahead, but the best way to learn these stories for yourself may be to ask the same 2 questions that inspired this special. How does your faith impact your music? And how does your music impact your faith? You could be surprised by how their stories provoke some of your own.
I too feel that music and faith are intertwined, that music is faith and faith is music. Just for some of us, that's what speaks to us and speaks to others. It may not touch everyone, but somehow I always feel like we have to try.